Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, wherever in the world you may be joining us from today. My name is Francesco Del Carpio, and I am the Operations Coordinator for CFAL York. I would like to officially open the 11th session of the Climate Change Emergencies and Cultural Heritage Speaker Series, which is being presented in partnership with Heritage Ottawa and World Heritage Catalysis. I would like to begin today's session with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge and recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territory upon which our campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. The area is known as Tkaronto and has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. As this is an online event, our participants may be joining from various locations, so I strongly encourage you to learn about the traditional land upon which you are located. With this, I welcome our moderator, our speaker, and our participants from around the world. Welcome to our webinar. Without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our moderator today, Dr. Kourosh Attarian. Dr. Kourosh Attarian is an associate professor of architecture at the Jundi Shapur University of Technology and a postdoctoral fellow at York University. In 2018, Dr. Attarian became the Vice Chancellor of the Jundi Shapur Research Institute at the Jundi Shapur University of Technology. Dr. Attarian's research focuses on cultural history and architectural engineering. His research has been published in numerous leading journals on architecture, cultural heritage, and sustainability, and has been published in several books. Dr. Attarian is also a reviewer for several journals, including the Journal of Building Engineering, the Journal of Asian Architecture and Building Engineering, and the Journal of Cultural Heritage Management and Sustainable Development, among others. Dr. Attarian, thank you very much for moderating today's session and for your ongoing support organizing this series. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Francesco. Hello, everyone. My name is Kourosh. I will be your moderator of the 11th session of Climate Change Emergencies and Cultural Heritage Speaker Series. Joining us today is our speaker, Ms. Cecilie Smith-Christensen, who will be speaking on World Heritage Tourism Futures, enhancing communities' adaptive and transformative capacity through collaborative finance. And to give a little bit introduction, Ms. Cecilie Smith-Christensen is a Norwegian economist, heritage and tourism professional, and the founder of World Heritage Catalysis after many years of focusing on sustainable tourism in and around UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Mrs. Smith-Christensen is in the context of climate change, increasingly focusing on how to enhance adaptive and transformative capacities within tourism host communities. In 2008, after 7 years of in Africa, she will move back to Norway, joining Nordic World Heritage Foundation as Deputy Director. In this role, she worked closely with the World Heritage Center and Nordic and Baltic Site Management Authorities to develop and implement a new World Heritage Sustainable Tourism Program in 2011. In 2014, she founded World Heritage Catalysis, commissioned by UNESCO. She focuses on facilitating the development of strategies and managing the relationship between heritage protection and tourism, and developing and implementing the UNESCO World Heritage Visitor Management Assessment and Strategy Tool, VMAST. Following the session, I will assist Q&A section. Should any of our participants have any question in the meantime, please post them in Q&A section. I'll be reading them through after presentation. Without further ado, let's go back to our speaker. Cecilie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for the invitation to come and present. It's really an honor, and I've been looking forward to it. And although I can't see everyone that has showed up, I appreciate those that tuned in. So, for me to share you want me to share the presentation now? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Good. So, yes, my presentation is titled Enhancing Communities' Adaptive and Transformative Capacity Through Collaborative Finance. But just before, well, I already had the introduction. I'm trained as an economist at the University of Oslo in Norway, and throughout my career, I have been focusing on the link between culture and heritage and sustainability. And as an economist, I have over the years also developed some, I would say, cognitive dissonance and some interest in exploring what I, as an economist, may contribute beyond the economics and the neoclassical growth economics that we have, that is fundamental to our sustainability paradigm today. So in my work and daily work, I collaborate and learn from a number of organizations and individuals from the various domains of heritage, economic, and tourism, and try to bring these domains together in practice. I'm also active member of ICOMOS. I'm on ICOMOS, International Committee of Culture Tourism Bureau. And I work as, I support UNESCO and the Sustainable Tourism Program on an ad hoc basis. So in my presentation today, I will basically, it's not going to be a academic presentation. It's more going to be a presentation of the work that is emerging through World Heritage Catalysis. And I want to make kind of three focus areas of my presentation. The first will be to address the fundamental unsustainability of the Agenda 2030 and why economics should be at the center of climate action and the strategic management. I also will address and focus on how host communities as systems, networks of networks, and why I believe resilience is the new sustainability. And finally, I'll focus on and introduce the transformation challenge and how we at World Heritage Catalysis seek to connect practice and support the transformation journey. And here under, I will speak specifically around the transformative visitor management and collaborative finance. Now, under the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, tourism is specifically addressed through the three goals and corresponding targets. It's the SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, with target 8-9 promoting beneficial and sustainable tourism. It's SDG 12 on responsible consumption and production, with target 12B to develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable tourism. And SDG 14, Life Below Water, and target 14.7 to increase the economic benefits through sustainable use of marine resources. But of course, the recognized scope for tourism's contribution to sustainable development is through the full prism of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. But at the same time, we also know that tourism is a energy heavy industry, and tourism is accounting for approximately 8 to 11 of man-made emissions. So tourism as a driver for sustainable development in the context of climate change has some problematic aspects. Nevertheless, Goal 8 on decent work and economic growth is considered the most significant indicator in relation to the role of tourism in sustainable development. And the goal sets an aspiration of at least 7% growth in GDP in least developed countries, with the relevance of tourism measured by contribution to this growth. Of specific relevance to culture and natural heritage is the Sustainable Development Goal 11 on sustainable cities and communities, with target 11.4, encouraging strengthened efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. Also, this goal and target applies an economic indicator. However, development based on perpetual economic growth measured by increasing gross domestic product has led humanity onto an unsustainable development path. A problem is that growth is exponential and not linear. So while it took the global economy almost 6,000 years to double before 1750, it has since the Industrial Revolution doubled every 50 years. A 7% growth in GDP, as set out through Goal 8 and Target 8.1, would double the economy every 10 years. And economic growth and high standards of living also means that we consume more. And if everyone consumed like we do per capita in Norway today, we would have used up what the world is able to sustainably produce by the 1st of April. And that means that everything that we consume thereafter, over and above, are extractive and depleting renewable resources. We now have the situation where we have crossed 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries, jeopardizing Earth's capacity to regenerate. And here comes the potential blind spot. And that is that this culture of perpetual economic growth is a relatively new outset. Since decoupling of the dollar from the gold standard in 1971, most money internationally is issued by private banks and into local economic circulation as interest-bearing debt. And that basically means that new money coming into society is not backed by anything tangible, but only the promise that and faith that loans will be repaid. And as a consequence, debt is constantly increasing. So in 2024, we have a global debt estimated to be $305 trillion US dollars. And the global debt to GDP is 336%. And that means that the global debt is basically 3 times larger than the total economic output or productivity of the gross domestic product of the global economy. And many local economies and regions have higher debt than economic earnings. And as a significant of money is going out of circulation, either to global or to tax havens or locally out of circulations to pay for imports, serving this debt through economic growth leads to extraction, exploitation, and depletion of natural, cultural, and human resources. And the resources considered natural and cultural commons, like much of the heritage that we are interested in and want to preserve, are specifically vulnerable. And as we are fully aware, global warming and climate change already have devastating effects across the world. And projections, even under the medium emission pathways, we have indicators that temperatures will rise to life-threatening levels by the middle of systems. The most recent evaluation of the Sustainable Development Goals of the roughly 140 targets, only 12 are on track, more than 50 are moderately or severely off track, and more than 30 of these indicators have either seen no movement or regressed below the 2015 baseline. Now, we also see that the global risk landscape is changing. I'm not going to go into detail about these risks, but it's a point to be made that we are living in an increasingly VUCA world. This is a popularized term where volatility refers to the speed of change, uncertainty refers to the lack of information, to predict the change and the future. Complexity, the large number of interconnected factors, making it impossible to analyze the environment and also draw rational conclusions. And ambiguity, which refers to the lack of clarity to interpret a situation where information may be incomplete, contradictory, or inaccurate. We also often hear reference to white, gray, and black swan events. So the white swan events are those that are relatively probable, predictable, and has foreseeable consequences, and where you can estimate the effects. And white swan events could, for example, be seasonal fluctuation, more extreme weather, etc. The gray swan events are those that are possible and predictable, but they have less certain impacts, and therefore are all often neglected in preparation. And while we know that climate change is coming, it's difficult for us to know exactly what the consequences will be. We also know population will change. We will have more climate refugees and pandemics, but still it's challenging we often ignore and hope for the best. And then, of course, the black swan events, which are the unpredictable, events that may have extreme impacts, but impossible, or at least very difficult to anticipate them and prepare for. This could be arguably the financial collapse, the 9/11, COVID-19. So in the coming years, success of travel and tourism businesses and destinations will be increasingly tied to their ability to manage and operate under even greater ecological threats. Communities are highly complex and distributed networks of individuals, businesses, and organizations. And well-functioning and sustainable communities have a diverse economy where goods and services are exchanged between community members, meeting basic needs and contributing well-being and development. Tourism can contribute to economic development, but can also change the social fabric of a place. And sector success and growth can reduce economic diversity. And tourism-dependent communities are specifically vulnerable to risks and disruptions affecting the sector. Where economic leakages are inputs are high, monetary supply and means of exchange could dry up, and COVID-19 demonstrated that tourism can collapse, depriving communities of income, liquidity, and sustainability. And this is made an attempt, sorry for the blurring images, but basically to illustrate the destination as networks of networks, and that sustainability and resilience is relational. So while travelers may find other destinations to visit and internationally owned tourism enterprises may relocate to follow the market, host communities and place-bound tourism operators are specifically vulnerable. So community resilience in the context of tourism refers to the ability of local communities and tourism stakeholders to adapt, learn, and self-organize in the face of challenges and disruptions. A thriving community is a good place to visit. The visitor experience and sustainability of the tourism sector is directly related to that of the host community with the locals. And there's a great deal of overlap between tourism products and services and basic community infrastructures related to food, accommodation, transport, and recreational opportunities or attractions, including World Heritage. Hence, the well-being of locals and visitors depend on the same and often limited environmental resources and regenerative ecosystem services related to land, water, energy, and materials. Consequently, building local community and tourism resilience and continued sustainability requires a systemic approach that considers the interconnectedness of various actors, value chains, stakeholders, and ecosystems. So what are the capacity and capabilities needed in the future? Well, these are, I'm sure, terminology that you are already well familiar with, but nevertheless very relevant here. So the resilience is the capacity of a system, be it an individual, city or ecosystem or industry, to deal with change and continue to develop sustainably while maintaining its identity. And resilience is also a result of adaptive and transformative capacities. So adaptive capacity are the skills and mechanisms used to adapt to challenges and implement incremental changes that enable the system to maintain functional. Whereas transformative capacity is the capacity to undergo significant and fundamental changes in response to challenges and disruptions. So this figure illustrates the evolving efforts towards sustainable tourism, or rather tourism for sustainable development. It has practice along the horizontal axis and energy along the vertical axis. So for many years, the general effort has been to move from extractive and conventional tourism, where production and consumption rely on fossil energy sources and causing emission and other negative externalities, where the attempt is to reduce the negative externalities and contribute towards more sustainable forms of tourism. Also with the aim to have tourism that has a net zero footprint and contribute to local as well as global sustainable development goals. But what is the future of tourism and the future of host community? And how about tourism as a transformational pathway? The transition towards net zero society is, of course, immensely important. And the faster we can transition towards a more energy efficient and reduce our carbon footprint, the better. This concept of an energy positive tourism relates to tourism establishments, hotels, resorts, lodges, etc., and operators generating more energy than they can consume, leading to a surplus of clean and renewable energy. This is not an established concept. It was actually something that was a vision, an idea that was presented in a workshop not long ago, where we were thinking about the future of tourism. But under energy positive hosting or energy positive tourism, this could be possible by implementing energy efficient technologies using renewable energy resources like solar panels or wind turbines and incorporating energy storage system. Tourism businesses could achieve energy positivity. And this approach would not only reduce carbon footprint, but also contribute towards environmental sustainability by promoting the use of clean energy and the tourism sector. And there are, of course, many initiatives and many efforts that are on this path and are making efforts and contributing in innovations that with the aim to bring the carbon footprint down and contribute energy positive tourism. But while the energy drawdown is crucial, the systemic challenges related to the extractive perpetual economic growth still remains. So the call for transformation, has been going on for a long time and increasingly voiced by world leaders from the UN and the climate sector, of course. But in our heritage domain, we may have been more, if we haven't necessarily addressed the economy, we have largely been ignoring it, and we have been putting forward arguments that sit within the existing development paradigm. But this is about to change. And I'm therefore putting forward the ICOMOS International Charter for Culture, Heritage, Tourism, which was adopted in 2022, which right out actually calls the need and opportunity for recalibration of the perpetual economic growth-based approach to tourism, and the need to recognize and mitigate its unsustainable aspects. It calls for a transformational and regenerative approach to cultural tourism, where priorities focus on building resilient and adaptive communities and heritage. And this charter is also backed by the more recent ICOMOS resolutions on the culture dimensions of the UN SDG, which also points to the transformative potential of culture and the need to go beyond the current discourse of sustainability, supporting generative and restorative economic activities. So there is a recognition that there is a problem with the economy that we operate within. But the question is how? How do we move? How do we act upon this challenge? So progressive heritage and tourism professionals are exploring and discussing ways to move from a linear economy towards a circular economy. And the change can be expressed this way, that it's focus from community serving tourism to tourism serving communities. It's a shift from linear growth-based approach to a regenerative circular approach. From growth based on growth-based success indicators to values-based success indicators, exploitations of commons to stewardship of commons, top-down and exclusive governance to distributed and collaborative governance models, from community disempowerment to community empowerment, of course, then also from vulnerability to resilience. So World Heritage Catalysis was set up to specifically explore how we could practically go about and support this change, this transformative change, by applying strategic and transformative approaches in tourism and destination management, aiming to protect natural and cultural heritage while building adaptive, resilient, and peaceful communities. And in our work, we distinguish between strategic management, which is the effort to align resources and capabilities with identified goals and strategies, and transformative or transformational management, which challenge the current state and intend to bring about more profound and fundamental change. And this also involves unlearning scientific creativity and experimental practice. So World Heritage Catalysis working hypothesis is that tourism as a transformational pathway would need to decouple the host-visitor relationship from the exploitative and extractive economy, and instead support non-exploitative and reciprocal exchanges. So in the future, we hope and suggest that energy positive tourism could be generative by creating new products and services that contribute to the well-being and sustainability of the local community, or restorative by helping to maintain and strengthen social ecological systems. And energy positive tourism products and services in a circular economy involving both resource and financial circularity could contribute to potentially contribute to regenerative development paradigm. So this is basically a elaboration, more nuanced approach to what you probably heard reference to, this kind of regenerative tourism and regenerative economics, which are to a large extent buzzwords, but they are problematic in the way that they often are not really filled with intent. What does it really mean, and how does it differ, and how does that go beyond sustainable and sustainability as we are used to think about it? So this is just what I just expressed. So in the mission to support the transformation journey, we have developed and are exploring a set of emerging tools, frameworks, and resources that are complementary and are building on existing practice, but basically could support heritage professionals, World Heritage Site Management authorities, various stakeholders in taking on a transformation journey. And so basically this journey is supported through strategic visitor management framed by the UNESCO Visitor Management Assessment and Strategy Tool. It's abbreviated to VMAST. It's supported through practice of foresight and strategic planning, shaped through World Heritage Tourism Futures Labs, circular economics supported through World Heritage Exchange Trading Systems, and collaborative governance enabled by the World Heritage Autonomous Organization, the WOW. So each of these focus areas are identified as potential leverage points for system change, where we invite collaboration and co-creation of emergent practice. So now I'm gonna, the next part of my presentation, I'm actually gonna go more into what these various concepts are to share for your understanding. So, oops. So I'm gonna start with to just basically present the UNESCO Visitor Management Assessment and Strategy Tool, which is a tool that has been developed under or as part of the UNESCO World Heritage Sustainable Tourism Program. It has been developed as a self-assessment and strategy development tool specifically for use by site management authorities. It's based upon the global sustainable tourism criteria for destinations, but aligned with the periodic reporting system, and basically a tool helping visitor or site management authorities to manage tourism for the protection of World Heritage, but at the same time see how visitor management could contribute to local sustainable development. So this is a free resource made available through the UNESCO, and it's an online tool which is designed upon or the basis of 4 overarching goals, which are focusing on effective governance and visitor management, protecting heritage values, contribution to economic, not to environmental sustainability, climate change mitigation and adaptation, contribution to inclusive social development, and cultural sustainability, and the contribution to inclusive and sustainable economic development. So it's quite a large indicator set with each of these goals has 10 strategic objectives, and each of these strategic objectives are set out through what you can do through monitoring in order to improve understanding, what you can do through budgeted activities for more feasible ambitions, what can be done through communication for improved outreach, through capacity development for strengthened capacities, and collaboration for increased impact. So while this is a tool that can be applied for adaptive, proactive management, it's also a tool to expose the complexity of a site and really bring and invite the various stakeholders in a community around the table to talk how do we want to manage and what do we need in order to sustainably develop tourism, but with the heritage of center of concern. So this is now being rolled out, and already around 40 World Heritage sites across the world are using it, and it's gonna go under a new update very soon. So it's gonna be even more available and hopefully useful. There's a lot of things I would like to share about this tool, but I'm not gonna say much more about it. But I can say that the VMAST is also a way to be able to address the various aspects within a destination. Basically, addressing the local system and supporting sustainability in the various systemic component that makes up a destination. Now, the VMAST is a tool for strategic management, and it sits within our current paradigm. It is framed to support localization of the sustainable development goals, and it's designed upon the expectation that tourism will develop in a natural and positive way. But as we are fully aware that the future is very difficult to predict. So in order to complement this strategy tool, we're looking into futures practice. Basically, futures literacy and strategic foresight to unlock the potential of the transformational practice. So basically, how do we move beyond the ontological and epistemological threshold of the concept of sustainability and look to how we can be more strategic and far-sighted with our efforts. So first, I just wanted to say a bit about the future. It's a very elusive, and the future doesn't exist. It's created in our imagination. And a problem that we often have is that we operate within blind spots. That's human nature and capacity that, of course, we are limited, and we often lack the full understanding or insight of domains that we are not familiar with. So that can potentially lead to flawed decision making. Like, for instance, tourism professionals may not be fully understanding of the need for heritage protection, and heritage professionals may not necessarily have full insights in economics, and neoclassical economists may not have full insight into heterodox economics, and so on. But then there's also this idea of futures illiteracy, and that is the inability to be aware of that we operate under assumption and biases. So often when we think about the future, we think about the future based upon what we know and what we have already experienced. And that is also preventing us and individuals and the institution from actively and using our imagination and the skill of anticipation to have agency in the VUCA world. And a famous futurist said that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those that can't read or write, but it's those that cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So in order to explore, let's just watch my time. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna run quickly. Oops. So we're looking at into what advisory bodies are doing. All of them actually are looking to various methodologies dealing with the futures, which involves a broad scope of approaches. So resilience thinking seeks to enhance the resilience by integrating disaster risk management and climate change responses in planning and management. And this approach focuses on resilience as a competitive advantage. And then you have the strategic foresight, which is systematic and structured approach to think about the future and anticipate future scenarios and plan accordingly. And then you have the futures literacy as a capacity to imagine, use alternative futures in various contexts and identify assumptions involved in this process. So these are methodological approaches that could help us to think more strategically around the future. So that is why we are, this is a new concept that we have, we're working on, how we could facilitate Futures Lab, helping site management authorities and local stakeholders create shared vision and stress test strategies against different futures. Now coming to the kind of the title of my presentation, because in the underpinning and where there is an agency to bring about the profound change, I believe is in the governance and finance. And this is where we find the VETS, the World Heritage Exchange Trading Systems, and the WOW, World Heritage Autonomous Organizations. And mind, these are just conceptual names, and they kind of contextualizing exploration of these type of financial and governance innovations that are taking place out there. So there is a broad support on the need to move towards circular economics. But the problem with circular economics is often that it's limited to look at resource circularity, and the financial circularity is ignored. And unless there is a financial circularity in the kind of the opposite direction of the resource circularity, the economy cannot be sustainable. So this is the part of where World Heritage Catalysis seeks to make a contribution, and also look to what type of innovation that could be appropriate and sensitive to the values and ideals that we operate and committed to support as part of our profession. I also want, this is a slide just introducing you to the kind of financial innovation camps that exist. You may have heard about these acronyms, DeFi, which is decentralized finance, which is often the blockchain-based financial services, and often applications that operate without centralized intermediates, but these are often used for more speculative instruments such as blockchain, Bitcoin, and other cryptocurrencies. But then you have the ReFi, which is initiatives where they bring these sustainable efforts. And then finally, it's the collaborative finance, and that is the innovation that I'm specifically interested in, which is more looking to reciprocity, cooperation, collective resource management. And the way that I like to distinguish between these are that you have the type of technology that are used to remove the need for trust within the community, and you have the technologies that are more human related and actually seek to build trust within the community. So the World Heritage Exchange Trading System, it's not one system, but it's rather an emerging portfolio of circular economics and collaborative finance tools provided through value-aligned organization, and that could potentially even be nested through open protocols. And they are primarily built around mutual credit. Individuals that know and trust each other, and yeah. So there are many tools and mechanisms that are relevant, like for instance, credit clearing, such as mechanisms for offsetting debt in a network. You have vouchers where you can issue credit spent locally, bartering, which is a trade and exchange without money, and you have time banking, which is a type of bartering, but without, with time is the unit of exchange. So this is, I'm not going to go into details here. It's just showing you that under heterodox economics and this collaborative finance, it's a lot of mechanisms that we have yet to explore, and that I really believe can have bring value and help enhance community resilience. You also have, because finance and governance goes hand in hand. So these are a type of mechanisms that could support cooperatives, land care trust, and also the type of new organization developed as a decentralized autonomous organization. This middle part here is kind of just saying something about the values that we build around, which is inclusivity, the way of redefining work, reciprocity, social networks, and respect. So it's basically, how do we build a new economy which is supportive of our life on Earth. The relevance, these tools could be used for provisioning, building economic infrastructure into communities, helping community members to make better use of existing assets, and where in events where money does not exist or has evaporated because of a disruption in tourism, money has leaked out. Financial infrastructure that can actually help communities maintain economically active, could be used to prevent unnecessary leakages within the community, could build community resilience, and could also be used to strategic in for recovery of a disrupted economy. This is just an image of the emerging theory of change and how these resources are connected. Sorry for rushing, I see that. And then finally, this is my final slide, but the point is here that this is an emerging community practice. I wouldn't necessarily, yeah, it's distributed, fragmented, but it's basically a space where to come and to explore and contribute and co-create these resources that hopefully will be useful in supporting the transformation journey. And so I would very much welcome everyone that has an interest in and to learn more and explore, and whether it is to express and discuss cognitive dissonance, or if there are actually interested in building something or testing out something, please reach out and join us. So yeah, I think I spent my 40 minutes, so sorry for the rush. I want to thank CFL and the UNITAR, along with the number of organizations and individuals that are contributing to and through World Heritage Catalysis, and I look forward to questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cecilie, for informative presentation. Thank you very much. And let's see what we have in Q&A. Okay, we have Ali Bali, who said that how can emerging, I don't know, it's really related to cultural heritage, but good question. How can emerging markets achieve economic growth while addressing climate change, and what role does technological innovation play in facilitating a transition to sustainable, low carbon development?
Well, I think this is the problem. It's we want it all, and I think it's very difficult to imagine development which is not based on economic growth. So we kind of programmed into that thinking. But the problem is that perpetual economic growth is not sustainable. It's gonna, we already see the toll of our ecosystems and social ecosystems. So the challenge is to build something before it is too late. And I think instead of talking about, so let's rather talk, okay, what is growth? Is it growth, or are we interested in development? I think, as I said, that sustainable development is not about economic growth. It's really about how people can maintain a healthy relationship amongst themselves and nature in times of great change, where we really need to support each other, where systems will collapse, where livelihoods will disappear. So yeah, I don't think we can maintain an economy with the economic growth that we had without huge cost, basically.
Thank you. Another question, another one, Ali, again by Ali. Also, on another note, how do Federal Reserve policies influence the ability of emerging markets to address climate change, particularly through the lens of the sustainable investment and technological innovation? I think that maybe it's not really clear to our cultural affairs. They think that we are, but if you like, you can answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that question.
I can read it again. Also, another note, how do Federal Reserve policies influence the ability of emerging markets to address climate change, particularly through the lens of sustainable investment and technological innovation? Oh, the question.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. I really apologize. It's the sound, but
yeah,
I think it's a lot of questions in there, and I think if the question is around policies, is that kind of yeah? I think that we see policies are changing rapidly, and just around the circular economics. What does it mean? How it's things are happening very quickly now. I think what is important, whether it's an emerging economy or it's about how can we think clearly and invent something healthy while we have the resources to do so. Because I think unfortunately we need to be prepared for times where we don't have the capacity or bandwidth, or yeah, it's a lot of disruptions gonna make things difficult in the future. So if we can have some infrastructure that are more resilient going forward, that will be in line with, but policy is slow. Let me put it like that, and that is why also a lot of these kind of innovation may be outside of the political and the kind of traditional accepted sphere. They may still be considered radical, but the ideas that was we were thinking about, like not long ago, which back then was, you couldn't speak about it, like talking about this financial innovation in context of heritage. It was just not, it was no space for do that. But now it's a more recognition that we really need to look at all the toolings we could bring about, because yeah.
Thank you. And another question by Dr. Askari. Great presentation. Thank you. Are there good examples of circular economy implementations in tourism sector, especially those around heritage, that we can provide?
There are a number of great initiatives taking place on like under Horizon projects and a lot of innovation. But as I mentioned, much of the innovation around circular economy, it's around resource economics or smart cities and big data sets, etc., and less around economic financial innovation. So, and that is what I'm basically interested in. How can we, because there are cases out there and good practices that are not necessarily applied in the tourism context or not in the heritage context, and how could we possibly look to them and adapt them and make them available and appropriate in the context that we operate within.
So we don't have, I think, any questions right now. So thank you very much for the presentation. That was very great. And thank you for the participants. And I hope that you're going to join our upcoming sessions. Sorry, I asked something. Okay, upcoming sessions. So for the closing session, I can hand it back to the Dr. Asghari or Francesco. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to echo my thanks as well. That was a great presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here and for answering the audience questions. Thank you as well, Kurosh, for organizing the session and for moderating today. And of course, always thank you to our audience for taking the time to be here, participate, and joining in on all of our sessions. So just as a quick reminder, I've put it in the chat, but just as a reminder as well here, this session, along with all of our other sessions in this series, are recorded and will be available on the event website and on our YouTube channel, which I've put in the chat. And this is an ongoing speaker series going on throughout, on a monthly basis. So please keep this on your calendar. The next session will be in May, on May 6th, with Constanze Fuhrmann, who will be presenting on climate change and cultural heritage in Germany, current perspectives and responses. So please mark that on your calendar if that is of interest. And please continue to share this series within your network. The registration is always open and free. And with that, just like to give one last big thank you to everybody. Hope everybody has a great day. And for those of you in North America and in the path of totality, please, I hope you all enjoy the eclipse today if you're able to see it.
Thank you very much.